following content contains adult language and humor that is not suitable for viewers under the age of 18. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The views and opinions expressed during the following video content are those of the individual and may not reflect those of others. Thank you.
Not here.
No, he's picking up the missus.
Nope. Hey, that's me!
Woohoo! That's me!
And that's you!
Haha! Welcome, one and all! Good evening, and welcome, one and all, to PACIFIC414 Pop Talk, along with Cash Money 007. I am your host, Mike, and tonight we have a very special watch party here on both the YouTube and Rumble channels, where tonight we will be watching the 1990 film Memphis Belle, starring Mathew Modine, Eric Stoltz, and this is a great film. For any of you who have never seen it, you're in for a treat. This movie is fictionalized in a lot of ways because some of the events that they depict are a series of events that occurred while our men were up there in the B-17 bombers making their bombing raids during World War II. But there are some truthful facts about this movie. As a matter of fact, one of the truths is that the Memphis Belle did fly 25 bombing raids. It came back. It did go on tour. Now, the crew, the real crew, is not depicted in this movie. It's a fictionalized crew based around the crew of the Memphis Belle, based around not only the Memphis Belle's missions, but also the missions of other B-17 bombers. And before we get underway, I do want to share something with all of you. I shared it a few days ago on the member stream, and tonight I'm going to share it with all of you. The reason why something like this is important to me is because in this group photo is my grandfather. He was a lieutenant in the 8th Air Force. He flew in the 832nd Division and the 833rd Division during World War II. He was in Europe during the time that the events in this movie are depicted. And that gentleman is this gentleman right here in your lower left-hand side. That is my grandfather. I am very proud of him. Proud of so many men and women who went over there and fought for this country, both in the air and on the ground. Without these men and women, none of us would be here today. It is great to learn the history of World War II. Speak with those who fought both on the ground, on the sea, and in the air, and to hear their stories. And one of the stories I got to hear was 21 years ago when I went to the 486 Bombardment Group reunion with my father. Why? Because at this reunion, was the last surviving member of my grandfather's crew. It was his navigator. And I asked him so many questions about my grandfather. What was he like, not just during the days in the war, but after the war? Because my grandfather passed away when I was 6 years old. So I only knew him for a short time. But I wanted to find out about my grandfather from his perspective. I've heard about my grandfather from my dad's perspective, my two uncles' perspectives, and my grandmother's perspective. And they all had the same thing to say. He was quiet, he was focused, but once you got to know him, he was there. He was there for you. He was there for a stranger. He was there for friends. And not a day goes by that I don't think about him. I don't think I have ever stopped thinking about him. And not a day goes by I don't think about my grandmother, because my grandmother, and I'm sure one of my cousins has it now, had an album. And in this album were photos of my grandfather's time in New Mexico training to fly a B 17 before going over to the war. And I have a vivid memory of sitting in my grandmother's kitchen with my grandmother. And I can remember that afternoon going into the kitchen with the album, and I was just looking at the pictures. And then I asked her about the pictures in the album. No, it was an album I hadn't looked through before. My grandmother had many of photo albums. And for some reason, on this particular day, I decided I'm going to look through this photo album. And I'm looking, and you could see B 17s, B 24s, B 25s, and other planes that were at this base. And my grandmother, she's doing her thing. And she said, "Well, describe some of the pictures to me." So I described some of the pictures to her. And she says, "That's when your grandfather and I were in New Mexico. Your grandfather was training for the war." And I actually saw a picture of my grandfather's navigator during that time and his wife. And when I met my grandfather's navigator back in 2002 at this bombardment group reunion and his wife, they had so many nice things to say about my grandfather, yes, but also my grandmother. And my grandmother was so pleased that my dad and I decided to take this father and son trip to this reunion to meet my grandfather's navigator from his crew. And I met so many individuals there who had so many stories to tell, men and women who had stories to tell. The true heroes were the ones that put their life on the line each and every time they went up in the air. Some made it back, but so many didn't. And this movie does depict some events that actually occurred up in the skies above Germany. So, without further ado, unless you'd like to say anything, Cash, we'll get on with the movie. I have pinned the link to the movie to the very top. And for those of you on Rumble and YouTube, welcome. Go ahead, Cash, if you have anything you'd like to say.
Yeah, let's rock and roll.
All right. Here we go. Come on. I hope you all can hear the sound. They used between 5 and 8 actual B-17s for the flying sequences. Not everybody did make it back. They used one B-17 for all the pyrotechnics. Yeah, this was back in the day where they still used filming models. He wanted his men to be focused. That's Harry Connick Jr.
And this cast is impressive, dude. Jeez.
Yeah, great cast. Billy Zane, of course, Eric Stoltz,
John Lithgow.
Mathew Modine, Harry Connick Jr. Quite the party, eh, Cash?
Yes. It's Sam.
Rudy.
Yep.
That could be taken wrong nowadays.
uh,
She ditched him.
yeah. There's the man on the left from Damages, Friends, a whole bunch of other stuff. Quite an actor. I can't think of his name right now, though, unfortunately.
You'll notice quite a few actors that you recognize. You may not know their name, but you'll recognize.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whether it was a ship or a plane, they relied on them to get them to the target and get them back.
Mm-hmm.
Sound good for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
Pre-flight mission.
no. This is also the years where people didn't know that smoking could have quite long-term side effects, but
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah.
They had to break the different crews in.
No.
You got to have Harry Connick Jr. sing.
He had a good role in Independence Day.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we should talk more during this movie. We don't want to put people to sleep. No, I'm kidding, but it's possible I might have seen this movie many years ago, but
I mean, this movie is 33 years old. And
it's amazing.
you've seen a lot of movies between that time and now.
I've seen
I'm
a
sure-
number of war movies, though. I've seen Black Hawk Down, a lot of different ones. From Here to Eternity. I don't know if you've ever
Mhm.
seen that one, Mike. That
Yep.
one's a really good film.
Besides Patton, one of the other ones I like to watch is Toro.
A Bridge Too Far. I mean, yeah.
If we're talking about more recent, Flags of Our Fathers is one of my favorites.
Yeah. Letters from Iwo Jima, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's a really good one too.
Of course, now it's escaping me, but there's that movie with Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, that one's pretty good.
Gotta lighten up the mood. Think about how many servicemen actually felt that way.
Yeah.
Knowing that they're going on a mission the next day and not wanting to die. Well, that's one way to detox.
No.
They'll be lucky if either of them throw up. He's not looking so hot.
Yeah. I don't know how people who have motion sickness could get through flying.
Mm-hmm.
Like actually flying a plane.
Well, think about it back in those days, too.
Yeah.
You didn't have some of the motion sickness medicines we have now.
No. That's true. Oh.
Waste gunners.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to make a correction about what I said the other day about the 909 crashing 4 years ago in New Hampshire. It was actually Connecticut that it crashed in.
Oh.
So I do apologize for that error. But look how tight the quarters are getting in there. Not a lot of room. We go through this checklist before we go on the air every time, don't we, Cash?
You're right. Yeah, check a whole bunch of stuff.
I love that part every time I hear it.
That's me right there. My stomach would be doing hula hoops.
That's Baron. Yeah.
Oh. You said anything.
Mm-hmm. And there you're still sleeping.
That's right. Huh.
Oh yeah, that movie with Andrew Garfield, Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah, that one was pretty good. Not one of my favorite war movies, but it's pretty good.
Tell you what looks good is Napoleon.
Yeah, it does. It's not getting great critic reviews, but that's all right. I'm still interested in it. That doesn't always mean anything, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But I keep wanting to think of Joaquin Phoenix saying "busy little bee."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but I do. The thing that I hate on a plane, I'm sure a lot of people do, is turbulence. I'm not a fan of
Yeah.
turbulence.
Yeah, I've gotten sick because of turbulence a couple times. I can remember one trip coming back from Washington D.C. in the 6th grade, and I wasn't feeling good that day at all. I even said to my dad, "I'm not feeling good." And we had stopped at a restaurant with the class to get something to eat before we went, and I hardly ate anything because of how I was feeling. Well,
Uh-huh.
we get off the plane in Denver, and and
Oh man.
I looked at my dad.
Yeah.
I said, "I told you I wasn't feeling well."
Ugh.
And then we get off the plane in San Diego.
Man, will you? One thing I wish I never. Ugh. One thing I wish I never had is motion sickness.
Yeah,
It's not fun.
I love this shot right here. B-17 taking off, flying overhead.
Very cool.
And this is where you'll see that they used one B-17 to stand in for a few others. Just think about how much muscle strength you need to fly one of those B-17s or any bomber during that time.
Yeah.
He's flat happy. He's hungover.
Yep.
That was a position nobody wanted, but there were that had to take the position. I would love to go up in one of those B-17s.
Be very interesting for sure.
Armed Forces Network. That's what AFN stands for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. I wonder if they would show that kind of dialogue now. It's offensive.
Probably not.
Uh-huh.
Somebody would take offense to it, but it's how they talk back then.
Yep, it is.
Fighter escorts.
That guy. I'm gonna be dead anyways. It doesn't matter. Here's some nice baseball cards. Here's a pen.
Here's a pen. Here's some cards.
I don't know. Hopefully our military will start getting strong again. It's not going to help with the boneheads we have.
Yep. You're going to need a strong military to defend any country.
Yep. Hollywood kids. Hollywood.
Hollywood.
Hmm. No. That doesn't sound good.
Calling out the positions of the enemy aircraft.
Right. Wow. Uh-oh. Oh.
I'm pretty sure they had to fly through things like this.
Yes, I believe that is true, yes. Jeez. Because they, yeah. I don't know. If I'm on a plane and I'm in war, I'm definitely gonna always have a parachute. I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, just like the tail gunner, they would use that for cushioning, considering how small that area is.
Mhm.
And no being on your knees. Yep, the fighter escorts are leaving. They only have so much fuel.
Mhm. There it is. Huh. Hmm.
This is a moment where a lot of reality is set into the movie.
Mhm.
One's more concerned about morale, the other's concerned about, like I said, reality.
Yep.
Some actual video from World War II film, I should say. And the thing is, there were many B-17s that came back just like this one. Hello, Anonymous.
What's up, Anonymous? I feel like this movie scared a lot of people away. It's too much. It's too interesting. What's going on?
It deals with a subject matter a lot of people don't want to face.
It's true. I agree with that. He never threw it out.
Nope.
Interesting.
Three to one. You can see the hole where the flak came through. When I went to the reunion in 2002, a lot of the men who were there were saying that was probably the most scared they were, is flying through the flak and seeing any of their buddies getting hit by the flak.
Yeah. Yeah.
They couldn't do it digitally. They had to do it by hand.
Whatever they can do to keep that plane together.
Yep. Save as much fuel as possible. They had to get over the target. They had to get back.
Right.
That's all right, brother.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm a part of your Discord, brother.
I didn't. Dempsey's in Discord? What? I'm just kidding. No, I actually I didn't know if he was. 'Cause some people don't like Discords.
Yeah, some people don't like.
Some people don't. Yeah.
They don't like Discord. They don't like social media at all.
No.
Pacific, check it in, Dempsey.
Yep. Oh, I figured he was going to joke around. Nope, he's really running out of ammo.
No, I don't know if anything like this ever happened.
Oh,
I'd have to do my research.
I don't know. Those fucking Nazis, man. Like, because you shoot the plane a certain way, of course, that that they'll take out whatever enemy they can before they go down, or it's just bad luck and they shot it a certain way, and and then it goes
too.
down.
They're firing their anti-air, their guns,
Yes.
and they could accidentally hit another bomber.
Right.
Wasn't done on purpose.
No. But they hit the Nazi enemy right there, and then of course that plane slammed into the bomber, and Yeah, I don't know if something like that happened, but I'm sure it's quite possible. Is the visibility going to be clear enough so they can drop those bombs on that factory?
Yep.
Like shit, yeah. Like shit. Yep.
You're not going to sugarcoat it when you're on a bombing run like this.
Mm-hmm. They can't make another pass, so
No.
that would use
No,
more fuel. Can't do it.
No, they wouldn't have enough fuel to do it. They would
Right.
have to abort the mission.
Yep. Ugh. Oh, there we go.
Yep. Now here's actual footage. Of course, not there, but right here, that's actual footage.
Uh-huh. Yeah, when you're doing a movie like this, of course, you got to make sure things don't turn out to be cheesy. If you can help it.
Mm-hmm. And there is an actual documentary available to watch. I did see it here on YouTube. I know it's on Amazon, and it's the actual Memphis Belle documentary that came out in 1944.
Oh wow. Yeah, close those doors. There's the lucky rubber band. Yep. Of course. Get that man up there.
Yeah.
Get him up there. Come on. Here we go. Jesus. Figures he played a character called the Rascal.
Yep.
Yeah. This guy's a good actor, though.
He is. I mean,
Uh-oh.
everybody in this cast is a good actor.
Yep, they are. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good. If I log in on this watch party thing, I can change my avatar. Thanks. That's cool, though.
Yep.
That is cool. Ugh. Oh, shit.
Yep.
That's right. Just do it, exactly. That's, of course, Eric Stoltz's character.
Yep.
Ugh. Ugh.
It goes from bad to worse.
Yep.
Now, this part coming up, I have heard from a few people that this part's fictional. No Obama
Oh,
was
yeah,
able to
I'm
do
sure
this.
it is. Well, it is a movie as well.
Yeah.
The goal is to always make this as exciting as possible, so. But some more movies, of course, are more accurate than others.
Yeah. It doesn't take away from this movie. It just wanted to let everybody know.
I'm guessing what they've got to do is they've got to figure out how to get that fire out. So they're using the
Yep. And
air.
this is the solution they came up with.
Uh-huh. Yep.
I mean, just think if this was actually possible, the arm strength that would be needed to try to level out.
Yep. Yeah, I know.
And then you got to hope and pray at the same time that the plane itself doesn't fall apart.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Huh. Yeah, they fired off the flare.
Yep.
Hmm.
Just imagine how many of our men who are up there, not just on the American side, but allies in whole, whenever they saw their home base.
Yeah. You did it, yeah. There's a lot of realistic situations that could happen, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the engine thing, but it's possible. Oh, well, maybe not.
Like I said, I'd have to look it up, but
Yeah.
I highly doubt that any bomber the size of the V-17 would be able to do that.
Come on, Danny boy. Jesus. I don't know. I've always been fascinated by this stuff. I mean, my dad and my brother got me into war movies and stuff that's realistic and other ones. And then you watch even stuff like MASH, and even people who were in Korea said a lot of that happened. I mean, that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's great research, is what that is. Well,
Well, also think about it. During the '60s, especially, you had people writing for shows who experienced certain combat situations during World War II.
good point. Yeah.
How are you doing, Phil? Now they gotta lower the gear
Yeah.
by hand manually.
Yeah, because they got to get those wheels down on that runway.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
Yet there were V-17s that did make it back on one engine.
The only thing that can is they're close to the ground. So, but yeah.
Mhm.
But even at air shows, unfortunately, we've had some people recently who have passed away because things went wrong, and
Yep.
hopefully they're fixing those problems. But you can only do so much, unfortunately.
Well, things have happened with the Blue Angels during
Yes,
their
they
current
have.
show.
Yes, they did. Yes. Gotta get those freaking wheels down.
Yep. Or you take a chance and make a belly landing. And as we saw in the beginning of the film, sometimes men didn't get out of the plane in time.
No. That's who that is. My brother reminded me. That's Tate Donovan.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, another quality actor.
Trying to save above the tree line.
Good. There's the runway. Now they can just
Yep.
get that on there.
Just get that last gear down.
Yep.
He's cranking.
There we go. Yep, they did it.
Of course, the actual Memphis Belle, as Dempsey had mentioned earlier, is in the National Air Force Museum.
I would hope so.
I did see a video a couple of years ago on how they were restoring it.
Did some nice editing with
Yeah.
with this movie.
Yeah. Back when they did it quite frequently when it came to movies.
There'll be some other war films that'll come out, I'm sure. Of course, there's other stuff coming out, obviously, on Apple TV. There we
And I
go.
mentioned it Sunday, and I'm going to mention it now. I'm looking forward to Masters of the Air when that comes out in January on Apple TV Plus. Floor of Last Mission, May 17th, 1943. Then she came home and went on tour. "200,000 air crew lost their lives in the skies of Western Europe." Now, for those of you who are watching it on Cosme,
Read Edward Diamond. He went by then. Okay.
Yep. I am putting the invite link for StreamYards into the chat if you would like to come on and talk about Memphis Belle. All right, gonna go ahead and stop sharing the movie.
Okay. I blame Phil.
No, nothing to blame, but I am gonna ask you what you think of the movie.
I blame Phil for everything. He's starting his shenanigans again. But anyways, it was very good. It's a very good movie. It's possible I might have seen some of those scenes before, but I don't remember the beginning and the party and everything. But strong cast. Definitely an intense movie. You're just always hoping that the whole crew is going to come back in one piece.
Mm-hmm.
Just
I could remember going to the theater with my father back in October 1990 when this movie came out, and there were veterans there who watched the movie who were in tears after they saw it.
Yep, I still remember when there were veterans who were watching the first part of D-Day and Saving Private Ryan, and people were crying in the theater. Those were obviously veterans, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So,
or if they weren't veterans, you saw, men and women crying because they were thinking about their fathers.
Right.
Not only during Saving Private Ryan, but also watching movies like Memphis Belle.
Yes. It's just there's been some really good war films, and they capture stuff that's just, like I said, is like Saving Private Ryan is perfect. When those people come off the beaches of Normandy, yes, and they're just getting mowed down. It's really, they did a really good job, Spielberg and everybody else who worked on that movie, of making you really feel that you were there and making you feel the trauma of these people too, especially when the guy had it's a brutal movie. I mean, Saving Private Ryan, it's not obviously completely
No,
based
it's
on
not a
truth,
lighthearted movie.
No, it is not.
I mean, think about it. Storming the beaches of Normandy on D-Day.
Yep. I just, people forget that without the sacrifice, like you've said before, we would not be here. And so it's unfortunate that people don't want to understand history as much anymore. Don't want to understand facts and logic about these situations. They think that it's a good idea to have our military weaker. Like these are not good things at all. They're just not.
I can remember going to see We Were Soldiers.
Yes.
With Mel Gibson. And after that movie was over and the credits were rolling, I started bawling.
Yeah.
I was thinking about my uncle who served in Vietnam, who by that time had passed away 6 years prior to that movie coming out. And then I think about guys that both he and my dad knew. And, every Vietnam vet I meet, I thank them. I've worked with Vietnam vets and I thank them.
Yes,
And
right.
I'm bringing this up tomorrow because in my area, there's going to be a replica of the Vietnam Memorial that will be open to the public beginning tomorrow, and then it closes at 2 p.m. on Sunday. I'm going to go see it tomorrow, and I will post video, not just on the YouTube channel, not just on the Rumble channel, but I'm going to post it on all my social medias because I think that's important that we remember those who have fallen, paying the ultimate sacrifice for our country.
Yes.
I have seen the actual Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. I have also seen the Vietnam Memorial in Angel Fire, New Mexico. And it hits you. It hits you completely differently.
Yeah, I've seen the Vietnam Memorial in DC in the late '90s when I was there with my mom and dad, and I've seen the Korean Memorial.
Mm-hmm. The only one I haven't seen that's in DC is the World War II Memorial, but they opened several years ago.
Yep, and it was raining that night too. And at the Korean Memorial, I remember seeing the statue of the soldier, and it looked like he had a tear down his eye. It was it was something. It really
Very
was.
appropriate,
Yeah.
I would think.
So
I can remember when we went to the Vietnam Memorial. This is during the same sixth grade trip. My uncle had asked my dad to look for a name of one of his buddies, and my dad was able to find it. So, like a lot of people, took the piece of paper, put it above this gentleman's name, and then basically, you know, did what you do with the pencil, etch it out, and brought it back. And my uncle started bawling. Just thinking about not just him but his buddies that didn't make it back. He was a fortunate one to make it back.
Right.
And that's also how the men and women who I met at the 486 bombardment group felt. They were fortunate, but they also looked at it as, why them and not their buddy or their friend who they lost.
Yep, I've heard that from a lot of people in the military. Why not them and not? Yep. Yeah, I don't know. There was one story. Some people that I used to play some Ion with, and this guy was telling me about guarding a dead body for 4 hours or something, and he said the smell was just horrible. He told me about his nightmares. I can't remember the man's name, but if people are going to share their stories, I'm happy to listen. I really am. And I was just like, that sounds horrible. But
and that's the thing, we should be open to listen to the stories of these men and women.
Yes, we should.
When you think about World War II, there are very, very few World War II veterans left. A lot of them have passed.
Right. Yes.
All the people I met at the bombardment group reunion 21 years ago, they're all gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know someone would say this is getting rather depressing. No, this is reality, and we're still facing reality. War hasn't gone away.
Yes, it has not, and it never will, because unfortunately, a lot of humans just can't get along with other humans, and there's It's the egos, it's the arrogance, it's the narcissism, but it can all lead to actual war. The dictators, whatever, it can all lead to war, and people need to understand that war is never pretty. And it's like, oh, well, duh. It's like, no, but it's never pretty. And just people need to understand history and why history is so important. Why we are where we are now.
There's a reason why they say war is hell, because that's exactly what our armed forces go through. Hell.
Yep.
No, I can't speak from serving in the military, because I've never served in the military. It's not that I didn't want to. I couldn't. I was denied. Having cerebral palsy. The moment I mentioned that, oh, thank you.
Right.
Have a good day.
Maybe you're glad you didn't serve, even though you wanted to. I thought about serving too, Mike, after high school, but I just decided it's just probably not for me. And I kept spinning around in my head, like, what if I was in a war situation and I died? How would my family feel about that? That's what it just kept going through my head. You know, what would happen if I was in a war situation and stuff? And, and look, I also don't think it's right. And I know there's some people who do this, that they go, I served in the military, so you didn't have to. You still decide to make the choice that you wanted to make. That doesn't mean other people are going to make it. And so,
no, not everybody who served in Vietnam or previous wars went on their own accord. They were drafted.
Right.
We're lucky that nowadays we don't have a draft in this country.
No, we don't. Yep, exactly, Jace. It's not okay that they want to change it. It's not. It's just not okay. And things of ceasefires and stuff, nothing is easy. And if you think it is because of things you see on the news, it's just ridiculous. It's not. That can't be the case, because it's just nothing is easy. That's why life is hard. And when people want life easier, I think that's why me and Mike grown so much, because of the way that we both grew up, and we both grew up differently, but we still saw a lot of the same things. That's why I think we want to fight so hard for entertainment and other things, because it hurts us. And well, I won't say it exactly hurts us exactly inside. That's quite dramatic, I would say. But
you want to defend the good that entertainment
has
done.
It aggravates us, yes.
A movie like Memphis Belle couldn't be made today. They wouldn't have the dialogue that's in this movie.
No,
they wouldn't have some of the scenarios that are in this movie.
Right.
They would probably do a fantasy version.
Yep.
Of the events. Not saying that everything in this movie was factual. It was fictionalized.
Right. But
they based it on actual events.
Exactly. There are situations that could actually happen with that bomber. They're definitely good. But remember, these
scene where they're coming out of the clouds.
Look,
they see that other B-17. There were mid-air collisions.
Yep.
Because they didn't have radar.
Right. I'm sure that happened. And it's just like stuff like Maverick. People, there were critics that would come out and start bashing that movie because it was a pro-war, pro-American situation. Well, it's not that they really told you what the enemy was. Even in the first movie, I guess they didn't tell you. But those are also things that could happen, and people have to go through training, and that there's actual pilots, men and women. But I thought, it's just more ridiculousness. These people are stupid. Once again, you're on a panel with them, and you look at them straight in the eye and say, you don't want to understand what war is, and you want to bash everything about the country, of the war, the flag, this, because you people are pathetic. This is the reality, Mike, as you know. And so, you know what? If you don't like it here, then guess what? You can always go somewhere else. Oh, you don't want to. You just want to harass other people. Well, that's not cool. That's not cool. We're not going to put up with it.
Here's the cold, honest truth. I'm not a big fan of Trump, but you know what? I will give him kudos. During his term, we didn't have wars going on.
You're right. There was things that were escalated, but not like we have now. And so people who actually want peace, then good luck, because it's not always that easy. But if you're smart about things, you can say what you need to say. So I don't care what president it is. I just want a president for our own country that we can trust with our military, that we can trust with a lot of different things in this country. And I'm whatever people want to believe, just like for their own country. I'm an American first citizen, always have been. I don't like us going around and policing the world, but I don't want to get all over that topic. I'm just
That's okay. I was just going to mention how I asked my father one day, and it was during Desert Storm. I said, "Why does the United States always have to step in and do things? Why can't other countries step up?"
Exactly. I've been
and my dad
saying
said,
that for years.
"Because we're the world's police."
Right. I've been.
Nobody else wants
to
take the responsibility.
Phil needs the link. He just messaged me that nutcase.
All right, I'll send it to him.
Okay. Yeah, I just, like I said, things are not cut and dry like people think they are. And soldiers coming back, you think you have a right to do this. It's just like what other songs have said, but you don't have.
Do you think anybody had a right to spin on our soldiers coming back from Vietnam?
No, man.
Calling them baby killers?
No. Of course not.
No, I agree. We probably shouldn't have been over there to begin with, but we were. Let's face it, we were. And so were the French before us.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And, I watch movies like this because it's a reminder of what has happened in our history.
Yes.
And we shouldn't forget our history, good and bad, indifferent.
Yep.
And we should always look at history as a teaching tool. Okay,
yes,
this is what
we
did right. This is what we did wrong.
But we keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again because we refuse, because a number of people, even leadership, refuses, a number of them, to learn from the mistakes that we had in the past. Things can always start being fixed. It just comes down to, will the people start doing it?
Will the people in charge start doing it? Do they actually want to do it?
Yep. And there's some people in charge that do care, but there's not enough. And that will always be a big problem, especially here in America. I know it's even worse in other countries, but the Philly boy has made it.
How are you doing, Phil?
You guys can hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you well.
I saw this movie when I was, 90. I was 19 in the movie theaters.
Okay.
It was a very popular movie at the time.
I'm sure.
I liked it. There were some. It's a movie after all.
Right.
Some creative. I don't think even the most accurate Hollywood movie, when it comes to historical, is 100%. You're never going to get 100%. You might get lucky with 80%. But overall, this was a great movie, man.
Yes.
Second most popular plane when you think of bombers, probably the Enola Gay is probably the best known.
Yeah, it's the more famous considering what it ended up doing.
It did, yep. Overall, I liked it. Personally, I have a lot of feelings about World War II. I had a lot of family members that served on both sides of the war. For me and my family, North Africa was an equivalent to a civil war. I had family in the Canadian Army. I had 2 family members in the American Army, and I had 3 family members in the Italian Army.
Wow.
So, North Africa at one point, that was pretty much a, for us, conflict. My grandfather was 16 when he got drafted in the Italian Army. was sent to North Africa, got captured in 1943, sent to England in a POW camp, came back. He was only weighing about 70 pounds. Like I said, war, like Mike, I would have to agree with him. War is hell. Some things today you can look back and you can say, this was good, this was not so good, but war is never supposed to be good.
No, it's not good.
No, it's like going to any of the, naval museums, Air Force museums, and reading the history on naval aircraft, reading the history on, Air Force aircraft, not just in World War II, but World War One, because that's a war that nobody talks about anymore.
I had my grandfather served in World War One. Actually, funny story, in 1915, he was serving in North Africa. Believe it or not, it was the Italian-Turkish War. And right after that war was over, he decided he was married, that he was going to go to the States. Went to the States, and lo and behold, the war broke out. Italy at that time was neutral, but then decided to join the Allies, but he couldn't make it back across the Atlantic because U-boats. So he stayed put. And then lo and behold, the United States goes to war. Now, he wasn't an American citizen, but on his immigration papers, he was listed as a veteran, and they needed veterans. So he was an experience in the artillery. So he got drafted into the 1st Delaware Artillery, was sent over there in France. Anybody can tell you, Italians don't have not a great hatred, but not a great love for the French. But he wasn't there for the French. He was there for, serving his, his new country.
Yeah.
At the end of the war, the armistice signed, he could have went to Italy to go visit his wife. He didn't do that. And he could even took leave if he wanted to go to Italy to go see his wife. He didn't do that. He actually went back when they shipped the Americans back at the end of the war, and then brought his wife over, my grandmother and great-grandmother, 2 years later. And the reason he didn't do that is, put yourself in his shoes. Here's an immigrant, can speak broken English, and serving in a war. And most the people he's serving with, family is back across that ocean.
Yeah.
If he was to take a leave to go see his family, that probably would have been resentment right there. So he didn't do that. He could have done it. Nothing stopped him from doing it, but he had the foresight of knowledge.
He was thinking about the backlash he would receive from doing it.
Unfortunately, the military decided to change a certain letter in our name from an A to an O, and we never bothered changing it back. But when my grandfather went to any of the VFW or the veterans thing, there's a bridge here in Wilmington that has a bunch of World War I names. He refused to put down, even though he used the name with the incorrect spelling. When he put his name, he only put down his first name. He wouldn't put down the changed name or the original name. So on the bridge, you only see his first name. So, but like I said, I had great grandfather, and a great uncle that was in the Italian army during World War II. They served in North Africa, fought the British 1-on-1. We were a little quick history there. They were actually winning, and then the British brought their troops from all over the empire. And that's when they start turning the tide, and that's when Italy called on Germany, and then lo and behold, you have the what do they call it, Africa Corps. Both my grandfather and uncle served. They're in the Battle of El Alamein. They're in Tunisia until the surrender. There in Tunisia. But yeah, that was, very big. I mean, even when I was in Italy, they were still talking about it.
Mhm.
You have to look at it this way: Italy and Germany and England and whatever I guess you call it, the Empire, the Commonwealth. They were fighting a lot longer before America got into it. There was a good 2 years of war before the Americans got involved.
Yeah.
So,
Excuse me.
that was back and forth, politics aside, when after decades go past, and I think we're at a point where we can look back at like World War One and said, if we weren't as hard on the Germans in World War One, maybe there wouldn't have been a World War Two.
That's what a lot of people have said.
Yeah.
I mean, Hitler
And
held resentment.
I mean, and this is nothing to put down to the airmen and they were the bombers, but I don't think there's a person, and there's a lot of people that were in the Army Air Corps at the time,
Mm-hmm.
didn't see a purpose of doing the great bombing of Dresden. There was no military purpose other than to cause civilian casualties. Now, again, it's war. Hey, it's war. But then again, you can give a little frown upon that. You never will see a movie made upon the bombing of Dresden. You hear something talked about it.
Yeah.
But, even in them circumstances, even if you're a pilot and you're dropping your bombs, 90% of the time you knew what the target is, but the bombings, there was no guidance.
Mm-mm.
All they had was the bombardier actually used an early form of the computer to take over the plane from the pilot to drop the bomb. And they tried to get it within a certain closed distance, but they did what they call carpet bombing. But why the Americans had a lot of high casualties in the bomber force.
Well, think about it too, Phil. The American forces were doing daylight bombings during World War II.
That was the deal we made. We told the British, you bomb at night, we bomb during the day. And we were asking for it because, during the daytime, you can't hide. There's no hiding there. So that's why a lot of our casualties were high. The other reason was earlier in the when we got into the war, fighter aircraft couldn't go as far. They can probably go so far.
They could only escort them so far before they had to turn back, because
turn back around.
If they didn't turn back, they were going to run out of fuel. And
so that we there's a lot of countries out there. Don't forget the Russians paid a heavy price in World War II. But a lot of people will say, well, we didn't do our fair share. Maybe World War One because we went in there, but at a late stage, but we turned the tide. Had we not entered World War One when we did, the Germans probably would have won. Here in World War II, I don't know if we didn't enter the war, I don't think the Germans and the Axis had a chance. 3 countries, three of the biggest ones, but if you throw in 2 other countries, Finland is iffy because they're not really Axis, but the Allies weren't helping them.
Well, one of Hitler's biggest mistakes during World War II was thinking he could go into Russia.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, yeah.
Like I said, if he went into Russia, or let's call it Soviet Union, and if he went in there and said, okay, I'm going to set up an independent Baltic states, independent Ukraine, independent Belarus, maybe even just hypothetically, maybe say bring the White Russians, aka the Royalists, back to Russia, he might have had a better chance of winning. And don't forget, the Japanese didn't get involved in that.
No,
The
but they
Russians and
stayed out of it.
Japanese didn't. They were Japanese, and at first the Italians didn't want to go into Russia, but then after the Germans did it, it was like, okay, what choice do you have? You know, so. And don't forget, there, like I said, there's a lot of Axis countries. People think, well, it's Germany, Italy, and Japan. No, they're the big ones. You have to count Romania, Bulgaria, Thailand, believe it or not, was an Axis nation. Finland was more for the West and the Allies, but the Allies wouldn't help them out because Russia. And Finland, pretty much, we sacrificed Finland. So if there's a country that got really putting a rock in a hard place, it was Finland.
Well, I could be misremembering my history too by saying this, but wasn't one of the fears was it wasn't so much facing Germany after they surrendered; it was facing Russia.
Yep. You had to remember, even the Germans were bringing people from other countries to join their army in the quote crusade to end communism. You know, what can we say? You know, like I said, war is one of the worst things we can ever do. And I know a lot of people say there's rules to war. No, not really. We'd like to think that. We like to think, even in our own cases, that we're always the good side. See, the first thing in the mental state is God's on our side. So the other side is bad. You know, that's the first mental state. Every country, when they go to war, they all do that. We do it. Didn't mean that we didn't do some things that, got covered over. Like I said, Dresden, you can put a question mark on. We blame the Germans for the massacre of American POWs over in the Battle of the Bulge. Did happen. But we forget we did the same thing. You watch Band of Brothers, you've seen Mr. Winters. What did he do? I mean, look, there's a rule more about doing that, but there's also clauses there. If an army is in the advance and they can't spare the troops to guard the prisoners, it's an iffy thing. I don't want to say that it's guaranteed, but it's understood that you can shoot them. I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with it either.
But
yeah, you look at that, Band of Brothers in particular, considering that is based on real events. You got to think about, what choices they had to make.
And I mean, if you're on the front line and you're advancing, sometimes you don't have the luxury of saying, okay, we're going to put 5 people to guard 50 German soldiers or whatever enemy soldiers. Under the circumstance, most of the time, the military would say, do what you have to do. I don't like I said, war is I know people like to think we have rules, but technically, who's going to enforce the rules if the other side wins, right?
Right.
It's something to always think about. For me, the biggest hang up for me in World War II, I didn't like the idea of the Nuremberg trials. And the reason I'm saying that is because I don't think any allied nation should have been the person sitting on the judge's bench to judge your enemy. There was enough neutral countries to do that. Sweden was neutral. Switzerland was neutral. There was a couple Central American countries that were neutral. We could have had neutral countries with neutral judges sit on there and come out with the same result. I mean, when is ever the winner always going to be merciful to the loser? 9 times out of 10, that doesn't happen.
Well, let's face it, even the quote-unquote winner could turn out a loser. Think about all the losses that the other side has taken, the loss to their economy too.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you can watch the old newsreels, they even said, even though we were occupying Germany, we're not helping the Germans. They got to build their country on their own.
Yeah.
And they were actually starving. They were on a 2,000 calorie diet a day. 2,000 calorie diet is barely a piece of bread, but we softened up our stance because the Cold War was brewing and things changed. West Germany was one of our biggest allies,
And that's true.
unimaginable when you think about it, that in a period of 10 years, the German army is the West German army was part of NATO.
Well, we'll also think about the end of World War II. Almost 5 years later, we're already back in war again because of Korea.
And the big scare was, and a lot of people don't understand this, when we were in Korea, the big scare was a lot of our military and the Pentagon thought it was a feint, that the real fight and conflict was going to be in Europe. If there was going to be a war in Europe, it would be right there in West and East Germany. And that's where they actually thought that's what the communists were planning on doing, But even there, Korea, I would have followed more MacArthur than Truman. Look, when another country jumps into a war, like the Chinese did, because we practically had the war won until the Chinese got involved. Soon as Chinese troops are killing Americans, you're at war with China. So he was absolutely right in saying we need to bomb these places in China. We're at war. If they're killing your soldiers, look, as a proven fact, nobody wins a war with one hand tied behind their back. It didn't happen in Korea. Sure didn't work in Vietnam. Afghanistan was another example for us. That's another thing. I grew up with my own eyes, and I can still remember to this day the fall of Saigon. And the look on people in my family's face when that was on the news and they're watching it. I'm talking World War II veterans, Korean veterans.
Yep.
People that just got back from Vietnam. They were totally disgusted.
Yeah.
They were sick in their stomach to see how we just up and left. And then to see this 40-some years later, the same thing in Afghanistan.
When we withdrew from Afghanistan, I heard a lot of Vietnam veterans saying, this is a mistake. We've already done this.
Yep. Vietnam, I know a lot of people say we shouldn't have been there. But our promise to the world was, if you're trying to defend yourself against communism, we would be there to help. If Vietnam was West Germany, it wouldn't have been a question. We would have been there. If it was South Korea, there wasn't been a question. We would have been there. So Vietnam, we had every right to defend our ally at the time. Granted, the governments of South Vietnam wasn't that great, but never forget, we weren't the only countries there in South Vietnam.
No,
we had Australia, South Koreans, Taiwanese. We had a lot of different people going in there in Vietnam. It wasn't only we were the major ones. But I had family. I had a cousin and two cousins that were in Vietnam. One was in the Marines and one was a Navy nurse for the Marines. And his job was, the one in the nurse, they would take the wounded from Vietnam and take them on a naval hospital ship to Manila in the Philippines. So, and the other one was in the Marines, and he got his Jeep got hit with a mortar shell, and he got burned, and plastic surgery had to be done, and they had to use his military picture to give him a guideline. You couldn't tell that he was burned, was it wasn't it was, I want to say it wasn't like third degree, it was like the lesser degree burn, but he still was burned. Yeah, he ended up passing away in 1981 in a veterans hospital. Had a heart attack right there in the hospital before he was going home. Left a wife and 3 kids. So, well, I mean, I'm not trying. I know it took us off a little bit.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean,
we're
watching a war movie. So.
I'm not taking away from anything that from our servicemen did. War is hell, if I can use that term. Nobody fights a clean war. Nobody fights a clean war.
Even during World War II with the bomber missions.
Yeah, I mean, I might say something that I don't like about the bombing of Dresden, but that's nothing against the people that were in the planes doing their job. Even if they were to say, maybe we shouldn't do this, when you're given orders to do it, you do it.
Well, think about D-Day. Yep. There were people that were saying, we can't do this. If we do this, we're screwed.
Yep. D-Day is a miracle that we actually succeeded in that. If anybody, when you read about D-Day, we did a great deception because the majority of the German forces were in Calais. But had the Germans had most of their forces in Normandy where Rommel wanted them to be, it might not have turned out the way that we, as it did on our timeline that it did.
Yeah. I mean, also look at it this way. We know of an actor who was there on D-Day. The day troops, not just U.S. troops, but Allied troops stormed the beaches. James Doohan, he lost his middle finger on his left hand storming the beaches of Normandy. And that's why you don't see him show it that much in the original series.
To know what them guys had to do, and I'm not just in Normandy, but other landings, having to get out of one of them PT boats. And when that door comes down, knowing every bullet, every gun is trained on that door when it comes down, you're just asking for it. You had the same result in Iwo Jima, when Marines landed there. And as fierce as the fighting was in Europe, the Japanese, you got to give it to them. Them people, surrender wasn't in their book.
No, they weren't going to surrender during World War II.
No,
they were going to fight to the last man, woman, and child.
Very, very few Japanese were taken prisoner, not because we didn't try to take them prisoner. They didn't want to be taken prisoner. And their idea and their mind, to be a prisoner of war is a disgrace. Even in their mind, a soldier that surrenders, and that's why they treated Allied soldiers pretty badly if they surrendered. They didn't get the honorable.
It was a disgrace.
Yeah, for them, it was your disgrace. It's almost equivalent of being a deserter. Mind you, remember, even to this day, there's some countries they didn't sign the Geneva Convention. Nope. Russia in World War II did not sign the Geneva Convention. So how they treated prisoners of war, totally different than how, the Western countries treated prisoners of war. North Vietnam didn't sign no Geneva Convention. So how they treated prisoners of war, and that's all I had to do is look at the history of John McCain, what happened with him at the Hanoi Hilton. I remember as a kid when they came home, when the airplane landed and he came off. He could have. The North Vietnamese were willing to trade him and do an exchange. But he wouldn't. He refused it because he didn't want to be shown favoritism. Think about that. He was willing to stay and they were tortured.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. They were tortured. He was willing to stay and be tortured than be, hey, I want to get out of here and go home. But that's how war is. I had a family member, my great uncle, my grandfathers that served in World War I in Italy, and the front line went right through the town. Monte Cassino. Have you ever heard about that battle? I was there when I went to Italy. And what happened was, real quick, 43, Italy decided, hey, this is it. We're out. We're done. We had enough. Well, the Germans wasn't going to let that happen. So they rushed into Italy to stop the Allies from going and taking the country over.
Mm-hmm.
So in the area of Italy where I'm from, the front lines start getting closer. And the Germans said, point blank, look, the front lines are coming. You got to stay indoors. Do not come out. For any reason, stay in your house. You come out, you can be shot. And not only by them, by the Allies.
Mm-hmm.
So, 2 weeks, 3 weeks go by and the front lines didn't change. People were running out of food. So my great uncle at the time decided, hey, I'm going to try to make her go for the next town where his other brother, my other uncle, great uncle, lived, and see if he has anything for us to eat. Now, it wasn't like they didn't have nothing to eat. They did have enough to food, but it wasn't enough to last, because after 3 weeks, I don't think anybody would have enough food to last.
No.
So he goes,
not possible.
He goes out of the house, made his way through, got to my other great uncle's house, and took some canned food, some jar food, and 2 chickens already plucked, defeathered. Yep. Put it in a sack, and he head back. Well, almost he made it back to the town a couple blocks away from home. A German told him in German to halt. Now, language problem there, maybe. Maybe my great uncle was scared. Possibility of both. He didn't stop. So the Germans shot him. Tragic, very tragic. I'm not going to fault the German soldier for it, because
let's
doing his
face
job.
it.
And you had to remember,
you don't know what you yourself would do in that situation.
And you have to remember, they issued the paper, and not only the paper, they told people in the town before the line moved there, stay indoors. Do not come out. Either way, until that front line is moved, either way, either they push the Allies back or the Allies push them back, wait till the line moves on in either direction. So, and there's some family members that still have a little hard time with it, even to this day. And there's other things that say, that's war.
Mm-hmm.
That's war. There's other family members, the third group would say, he should have just stayed home. It wasn't like they didn't have any food, just that they were running low. So, and like you say, we know how long the line lasted. When you're there in your house or in your home with other family members, you don't know if it's going to be a month, 2 months, 3 months. Think about it today. If there was a battle by your house and you have enough food to last a month, but you don't know how long it's going to last, it could last 2 months. You don't have enough food.
Mm-hmm.
And again, war tends to do them things, I say this: war brings out the most darkest side of humanity. You would think by now we can get past wars. Why can't we just throw a bunch of people in the soccer field and say, go play a game of soccer, whoever wins Hey, instead of shooting bullets, go have a paintball fight, and whoever wins, wins, and let's leave it at that. Nah. But as even Cash said, and you said, we should always be grateful for the people that served, especially then, because our today wouldn't be today had they not done that.
Exactly.
I mean, I even go back. If the people in the Revolutionary War, George Washington and crew, didn't, let's put it this way, they didn't win many battles. Most of the time, the British won. But if they didn't stick together and refuse to give up, we wouldn't be here as Americans today.
Of course not, man.
And I know today it's easy for people to say, and I'm not a degree in history. I don't have no degree, but my passion, my hobby, if you will, one of my hobbies is history. And to see what today goes on and how we want to change history, like you cannot compare somebody 50 years ago to somebody today.
No, you can't.
And you can't compare 200 or 300 years ago to the beliefs and standards of today. It doesn't work that way. Our time to shine is the moment of now, and how history perceives us isn't going to be in the past. You can't do nothing about the past. The past can never be changed. The future, okay, if you want change to be done, then first you have to look at yourself. Then you have to look at, say, what are reasonable things today that I can change that is going to make my neighbor happy, make myself happy, might not be totally happy, but we can be civil about certain things. Going around and tearing down statues, trying to undo history is not going to change nothing. It's not going to change anything. We can try to change flags. We can try to change statues, names of football teams or any high school teams, roads. You're not going to erase history. The only thing you're succeeding to doing is showing you what you're trying not to be what other people are. Somebody talking in the background. Politics.
Yeah, I heard that too. So, Cash, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I was just listening to Phil. Unfortunately, no, I'm just kidding. But yes, I was listening to Phil. No, I don't really have too much to add. I've talked to some military people about stuff, and they've told me interesting things from how they don't like the cold and training they've gone through and all different interesting things. And I'm always happy to learn, especially about our military, but I'm very disgusted about how weakened our military has become and that there's shenanigans going on that shouldn't be going on in the bases and stuff. Yep.
I am not happy with our modern military of today, especially what they have done on their own part of changing history. Like I said, I don't understand why there's a war on refighting the Civil War. That was over 100 some years ago. The war is over. The one bright spot in at the end of that Civil War, North and South try to make peace.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to believe me when I say that, Ulysses S. Grant, as the things he done, was smart enough to know he didn't try to pull an unconditional surrender on Lee and gave him great terms to surrender, knowing that if I give him great terms, the other Southern armies are going to, hey, this is time to end this war. Let's end it. We take these terms and go home. we didn't have mass hangings. And that was particularly thanks to Ulysses S. Grant. But we also have to thank Robert E. Lee, because he could have done, hey, let's do guerrilla war. And we would be still fighting that type of war today. He didn't go that route. They're both Grant and Lee was able to say, let's shut this war down. And we tend to forget
it's hurting the country too much. It was splitting up families. And
I mean, if you look at the Civil War, most of them had families on both sides. And when you sit there and say, today people say, well, you see a Southern person in the Southern Army, you see that gray uniform, oh, they fought for slavery. Well, I'm here from Delaware, and I can name you 5 generals in the Union Army that owned slaves. My state was a loyal state.
It wasn't just Confederate states that owned.
No,
slaves.
like I said, I'm from
states too.
Delaware, Maryland, West Virginia, Missouri, Kentucky. And there was even some people in states like New York and even Illinois, even Ohio, that end up crossing the line and fight for the South. And there were some people that crossed the line and fought for the North. That's why it's called a Civil War.
Yeah.
I understand when people say, well, they fought against the United States government. Of course they did. But when they're seeing a statue, that statue ain't put there by the United States government. That's put there because these are veterans that the state had required them to fight. You're in North Carolina, Mike, and as much as you do have disabilities and stuff, but if the state of North Carolina asked you to fight because, hey, people from New York and people from Pennsylvania are coming down, and they're not going to be nice people and say, oh, put your gun down. They're coming down there to shoot, and you got to shoot back.
I got to be able to defend myself.
And look, if you're going to use the slavery issue, okay. If you're a person that owned a slave, even a single slave, you better have a rank above captain because you couldn't afford it. Most of these people, the basic private, the sergeant, even up to a lieutenant, couldn't afford to own a slave. It's the equivalent of you going to say, I want to own a Corvette. Not everybody can afford it.
I would love to own a Corvette, but
I'm
it's out of my price range.
Yep. And like I said, I mean, was slavery an issue? Yeah, but I'm from Delaware, and I can name you 5 other issues, not just because of slavery. And in some people's eyes, Abraham Lincoln is the great liberator. In other places,
some people's eyes, he's a villain.
Yep. I mean, Maryland, let's be honest. John Winkle's Booth, Mr. Booth, that shot Lincoln, was because he was from Maryland and he did not like how he treated Maryland. But here's the historical fact. His brother was also an actor. And at a railroad station in D.C., a boy fell off the little tier there where they get on, wait for the train.
Yeah.
And he managed to grab the boy by the hand and pull him up right before the train came. Guess what? That was one of Lincoln's sons. So a Booth saved a Lincoln. A lot of people don't know that. When you see, the only way you find out this stuff in history, like I said, movies
is by reading about it.
Yeah, movies have
doing your research.
Movies have 90 minutes. And sometimes they have to do things in a movie to make it unhistorical, but it's to make the story go. So sometimes you have to do research on it. When you want to, if you read about the people like that flew the bombers over there, like I said, Memphis Belle and Enola Gay is probably the 2 most famous ones. The Enola Gay we all knew because it dropped the atomic bomb. But like I said, you should never take someone's word for it, even a director or a movie. After you watch something, Go read about it. Do a quick research. Read about it. And sometimes you can say, they got this right, but they got this one totally wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, a movie isn't supposed to be 100% historically accurate.
No, but my dad will watch, movies based on World War II, especially, and he would look at the uniform. Now, he didn't serve in World War II because he wasn't born until 1945, but he would look at it and he's all, that's not the uniform that they wore back then. They got that wrong.
And people don't know, even back then, uniforms change. You look from World War One. Have you ever seen the one about Desmond Doss? The guy who played Spider-Man played him in the movie. His dad goes into his court-martial dressed in the World War One uniform. That's only 20 years old, but his uniform is so alien to the uniform they were wearing, it don't even look right. You look at the uniform they were wearing in the 70s.
Yeah, you're talking about Hacksaw Ridge, right?
Yeah,
I mentioned that earlier.
But if you remember that movie where Stripes, look at the way the Army uniforms are there and compare it to Desert Storm.
Yeah,
there was a lot of veterans.
Styles change.
Yeah, there was a lot of veterans that seen the new Desert Storm helmet, and it does look like a German World War I helmet or World War II, the way it's styled. I don't have a problem with it because guess what? If that was a better safety helmet, then by all means use it. But it didn't have the typical World War II helmet where it was round. It changed. Then you look at our Navy. Our Navy now wears blue uniforms. Camouflage.
They did it before.
They had purple. It was the purple and they had the white. Army always had green or sometimes tan, but their traditional uniform is blue, and they still have blue uniforms. Just a person that's in the Army has to pay that out of pocket.
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, going back to this movie, I loved it. I love this movie, and there's a lot of famous people. Some didn't end up going past this movie, but there's a lot there that you can see. Just looking at it, there's like 4 of them right there. I can see that. Wow. Thinking about it, they managed to put a great cast together.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Connick Jr., he's still active in acting. He had a talk show. He still writes his own music and, sings covers of different music. Mathew Modine still going. Sean Astin, he's still going too.
Just the redheaded guy, because I remember he was supposed to be in Back to the Future. Yep.
Yeah, and good actor.
Yeah, he is.
And Billy Zane, he still shows up.
Yep. But yeah, you have to. And another thing to remember, a couple of years after the war, what was it, 2 or 3? They were Army Air Corps. Then they became the United States Air Force. Totally separate branch. Now they divided again. Now you have it's Space Force.
Yeah.
So, but think about, I mean, not just with our Air Force in World War II. Think of our Navy.
Yep.
Our Navy exploded. We even today, think of it, no nation has 16 aircraft carriers. Think about that. 16 aircraft carriers.
And see, when it comes to our Navy, especially during World War II, I wish I had gotten the chance to know my grandfather on my mom's side. Unfortunately, he passed away 10 months after I was born. But I would have loved to have, heard what he went through and his experiences. My mom knew a little bit, but it was something that my grandfather didn't want to talk about with her. Not because she was a woman. He didn't want to bring up some of those memories.
Like I said, I have a lot of family members that served in wars, and one thing I would say it's hard for them to do is ever talk about it. They just rather move on. You know, I had my grandfather in Italy. He talked about it. My great uncle that was there with him, he wouldn't talk about it. I had cousins in, 2 cousins in Vietnam. Neither one of them liked talking about it. Not because, but one had a bad experience. The other one, like I said, he didn't have a bad experience because he was a naval nurse. So, I mean, seeing wounded people is not something good. But what I'm saying is he didn't have the horror to see on the battlefield. He just seen the horror, the after effect. So, and unfortunately, he got killed he just got off doing a tour duty and got home, was coming home for leave on a motorcycle up in Philadelphia, and someone decided to hit him from behind with the car. And a motorcycle, you ain't got no chance, man. Sent him up in the air, and he died even with the helmet on. So, wasn't a way for him to go, But our time is our time, So, but I would put this Memphis Belle, I would put it up there as again, you can't say historically accurate, but I would put it up as a historical movie, top 5. Probably the only thing closer at that time, and even though it's 6 years older than Memphis Belle, and it's not historical, was Red Dawn. Red Dawn. I know people today, because of the remake, forget the remake. Red Dawn was very popular for many reasons. I'm not scared to say this, but I'm going to say it. Growing up in the 70s, and after, like I said, the fall of Saigon, mentally, our country was mentally at a low point.
Yeah, our country was broken at that point.
There was TV shows and movies about Cold War, and it wasn't about us winning; it was about us losing. The question
because that was the state of the country.
The mind, yep. I mean, if you look at Battlestar Galactica, the original series, that was put in our head. This might happen if we lose. It was the big thing coming out of Battlestar Galactica. I remember the line where the guy Apollo is talking, and he goes, "The opposite of war is not peace. 90% of the time, the opposite of war is destruction." And sometimes you might not have a country, or the country that you grew up in and known is totally changed forever. And maybe not for the good. Might be good for the people that win or the people that lost in some cases, but it's not a good thing.
Nope.
I mean, look at it this way. Japan and Germany went through World War II and pretty much got wrecked for it. But if you remember in the 80s, what was the 2 biggest countries economically? Japan and Germany. And our allies, pretty much by our side since that time, Japan and Germany. It's definitely Japan. I can speak as an Italian. At the end of World War II, we didn't get the restrictions that Japan and Germany got. We still had a Navy, we had an Army, we had an Air Force. We had to rebuild it. But the limitations is, out of the 3, for the longest time, we were the only ones out of former Axis countries that has a aircraft carrier. Actually, we have 2.
Japan, and also think about it, at the time when World War II broke out, we still had some World War I era battleships and aircraft carriers.
Yep, they had to redo our economic back then, because our automotive industry in particular, we could produce. It wouldn't have surprised me if we could produce, especially like bombers. We could probably produce maybe out of one factory, probably 50 bombers, where even Germany or even England couldn't produce that many. We were mass producing. And let's be honest.
And not only mass producing, but we had men and women building aircraft, building military equipment. Mostly the riveters.
I will tell you this. Speaking with my grandfather and my uncle, and when I tell people, yes, the Italians at first were pushing the British back, it was the Americans that saved them, and not by going into the war. Lend-Lease, you start seeing them getting tanks, Sherman tanks. And they were being mass produced even before the first Americans went to war. You know, they were getting ships. Remember, if you look through history, they gave Roosevelt gave the British 50 quote unquote age destroyers. They weren't age destroyers. That was just a term so people think we weren't giving state of the art. We gave them 50 quality destroyers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look at it this way. And there's been, when people say, well, you shouldn't say we did some questionable things. Look at the Bismarck. The Bismarck was sunk because the British wanted to get revenge for the battleship Hood, but also because that was the most deadliest battleship at the time. They actually lost track of that ship. It was a United States Coast Guard cutter all the way off the coast of France. Mind you, we're neutral. That radios the location of the Bismarck so the British fleet can go after it. Again, questionable. You know, we weren't at war with Germany, but we were already doing things to put us. The biggest one I ever get a chance to watch is a World War II movie, and I love it. It's the Lacona Incident. You can
I've seen that. That's a great movie.
It's a free movie on YouTube, and if you watch it, you start questioning your head, and you say, "Okay, this really happened?" Yes. Where it made, let's be honest, the German captain looked like he was a hero, and the United States commander over Ascension Island and the British looked like, we're trying to make publicity stunt. You know, I can talk about it, but it's better probably if people watch that. Watch it on your own.
Definitely watch it.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
And it's not. Please do not take this as saying that Hitler or Mussolini or Tito over in Japan. I'm not questioning them people's motives, but you have to understand, if you see the effect of World War I, why did people in them countries turn to them people? Well, maybe if we didn't do some of the things politically we did in World War I, especially at Versailles, that wouldn't have happened. You know? Look at this way.
That's one of those questions you just don't know.
Yeah. As bad as everything went down in World War II was bad, Stalin killed a lot of people from the time he got in there, a lot more. Again, what can you say? You know? I always try to say, and I don't like using gray area, you got to look at it from all angles. Not everybody's a saint, and not everybody is a sinner. Sometimes some people are more dirty than others, but it isn't like we don't have dirt ourselves. You know?
Every country that's involved in a war has dirt on their hands, has blood on their hands.
You know, and the sad thing is you can see that same narrative being played out today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want to do that. You know, I can mention it. The only thing I can say is you can't blame people if they're defending themselves after being attacked.
No.
You know,
that's human nature to defend oneself. And I think on this note, Bill, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here, because I do have something that I'm going to be doing tomorrow, and I don't know if you heard me mention it earlier, but There's a replica of the Vietnam Memorial that's in my
Is that
area.
the traveling one?
Yes.
Well, if you get a chance, pictures, my friend. Pictures.
I plan to take plenty of pictures. I'm going to take video and I'm going to post it to all my socials, including the YouTube channel.
That was one thing that I would tell you. I remember going to DC, seeing the memorials.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people didn't like the design of the Vietnam Memorial. I actually do like the design of the Vietnam Memorial. You know, it's fitting, it's unique, and I think serves a purpose. You know, but if anybody ever gets a chance to go to Washington D.C., you should see the memorials to the Korean War, World War II, and Vietnam. Yeah. Statues have meanings, you know.
Memorials have meanings.
Yep. And it you might not always agree with it, you know. Like I said to somebody before, I remember when they were raising money for at Walmart for World War II. And I told them, I said, I'll gladly give it to you, but I also have family that fought on the other side. And I'm not shy in saying if there was something going on over back home over there, I would do the same thing. You know, everybody should be remembered because 9 times out of 10 people are just Joe Schmo from a small town that their country drafted them just like they draft here for war and say, here, go off and fight. No questions asked. You know?
And before we go here, Cash, do you have anything you'd like to promote?
Not yet. There'll be some stuff, but I haven't figured it out all yet. But yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And Phil, is there anything you'd like to promote?
Well, hopefully in a few minutes, Cash Money will be joining me, and we're going to join a friend of ours on, and yours too, Mike. Playing a little
Master Paul, well, former Master Paul, currently Paul of Panamology, or as Phil likes to call him. Nope. Not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. Wouldn't be permanent. and yes, George Senior, he was a World War II veteran.
Yes, he
fighter
was.
pilot.
Yep.
But I'm gonna go ahead and post the link to Paul's channel into the chat. So Phil will be joining Paul over on Phantomology to play some Myth Force, as will Cash. And as far as what's coming up on PACIFIC414 for YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, and Kick, tomorrow I will be playing more of RoboCop Rogue City at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And then there's nothing planned for Friday or Saturday, although either tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, Friday or Saturday, I will post the video that I plan to take tomorrow of the wall that heals that is coming to my area.
Nice. But yeah, if Baron's available on Friday, then we'll start up our multiplayer games again. But if he's not, then we'll do something else.
And then Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern will be the Sunday edition of PACIFIC414 Pop Talk. And we're celebrating 4 years of PACIFIC414. Now, gotta be honest, technically, it would have started back in March had I not deleted the original channel. But since this particular form of PACIFIC414 began in November 18th, 2019, we're going to be celebrating it on Sunday on the 19th for 4 years. Because at that time, I had already had the PACIFIC414 channel, but I wasn't actively creating content on it until March of 2019. And of course, then I also had the Twitch channel, and then more recent history for Pacific 414, we have the Kick channel and also the Rumble channel. So that'll be coming up. It will be an open panel in the second hour. The guidelines will still be in effect. Baron, Cash, and I will be enforcing those guidelines.
Yes.
But the whole intention of that stream is just to have fun. And I do have a direction I want to take this channel, and part of that direction is to continue to have fun.
That's the most important thing.
Provide the best content that I possibly can.
Well, as the king and legend of Pop Talk, I approve.
Oh man, you knew it was going to happen.
Why does that trigger Cash Money more than it triggers Mike?
Mike is just rolling his eyes right now. He's like, oh, boy.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just used to it by now.
Yeah. Oh, we're used to it. We're all used to it. That's for sure. Yes.
But I do want to thank everybody who came by, and Anonymous, thank you for joining the watch party. Catch, thank you. And also Jason Fox of 540 Studios, thank you for joining the watch party. In the chat on the YouTube side, we had Brandon Looney Tunes Fan 2000. We had Jace from 540 Studio. Phil McCracken. We had Dempsey. And Dempsey, you had some great pictures from the Air Force Museum that I actually looked at during the stream. And, of course, I want to thank Anonymous. Anonymous. I don't know. I just might, if Phil decides to join the panel Sunday, I might give him a strike. Be careful, Phil. Careful. I might put one of these up.
As long as I don't get a third strike, everything's good. It's like baseball. You know, you take. You know, some people intentionally take a first strike. You know that, Mike.
Yeah. It's part of the strategy.
Yep.
But nobody wants to get this on Sunday.
You're gone.
And for anybody who might be asking, yes, the guidelines are already posted in the stream for Sunday on the YouTube side. As soon as I'm able to schedule that stream on the Rumble side, which won't be till Saturday afternoon, those same rules will be posted in, in the description on the Rumble side as well. But everybody is welcome to join the open panel. I just ask that you follow the guidelines, because I am going to be looking for some topics to talk about, and of course, talking about the channel too. So until then, everybody, thank you all for watching. Thank you again to those of you who joined us during the watch party. And remember, I'm not just a baseball guy. I'm an all-around guy. Take care, everyone.
Autobots, transform and roll out.
Good night, everybody.
Blame Phil.
No, we're not blaming Phil tonight.
Yanking my